because the politics didn't sleep, the polity didn't sleep, all of the estates of the realm didn't sleep, especially the fourth estate of the realm. Just on April the 17th, there was a notice, a press release, I should say, by the National Broadcasting Commission issuing formal notice to broadcasters over code breaches in news, current affairs, and political programs. I'll just read a few paragraphs for you. This particular press release has now gone viral. I think this is one of the few times that you have some sort of advisory or release from the NBC that will go really viral, both on traditional media, the legacy media, and the new media. And that tells you one thing: everybody is interested in this. So it starts by saying that the National Broadcasting Commission has identified a sustained increase in breaches of a sixth edition of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code across news, current affairs, and political programs. It says broadcast platforms are increasingly being deployed in ways that depart from their core obligation to inform the public with accuracy, balance, and professionalism. The third paragraph and says, as we approach the 2027 general elections, the Commission hereby notifies all broadcasters and stakeholders that it will enforce strict and uncompromised compliance with every provision of the NBC, that's the Nigeria Broadcasting Code, particularly those relating to fairness, balance, accuracy, hate speech, incitement, and respect for constitutional bodies. Now, this is the meat of the matter. In view of the foregoing, the Commission draws attention to the following pressing issues. One, the crisis of anchor and presenter professionalism. It says the Commission has noted a disturbing departure from the core principles of broadcast journalism in clear violation of the ethical standards enshrined in the Nigeria Broadcasting Code. Section 110(3), the broadcaster shall ensure that its presenter does not express his or her opinion in the program as a matter of professional standard. It goes on. Section 3, sub 3(1)(b), all sides to any issue of public interest are equitably presented and for fairness and balance. All sides to an issue are equitably presented, preferably in same broadcast. The broadcaster shall, in using political materials for news and current affairs programs, avoid hate speech, inflammatory, derogatory, and divisive remarks or allusions. So it goes on. The other issues around misuse of broadcast platforms by political actors, saying no broadcast shall encourage or incite a crime, lead to public disorder or hate, be repugnant to any person or organization alive or dead, or generally be disrespectful to human dignity. It ends by saying, henceforth, any anchor or presenter found to have expressed personal opinion as fact, bullied or intimidated a guest, denied fair hearing to opposing views, or otherwise compromised neutrality shall be deemed to have committed a Class B breach. It is a 3-page document, and it says also that broadcast platforms must not be used for hate speech, personal attacks, or content inciting disorder along political lines. I could tell you that this is one of the most popular press releases right now. And historically, really, the fourth estate has always been in a running battle, it will seem, with the first estate, second estate. Well, the fourth estate is meant to project the third estate, which is for the commoners, right? So there's the clergy, the noble, those are the first and the second. There's the commoners and the fourth estate of the realm. Now, there you have that statement from the NBC. So honestly, this is nothing new. I would say this, to a lot of us, is an impetus to keep doing our work, which is to hold government accountable, to ensure that the people are informed, to ensure that we set the agenda. And I must say, it's a shot in the arm. There is a regulation bit, but obviously this is a shot in the arm for us. Nothing new, I must say. But I should say at this point that enough is enough of the fourth estate taking the fall. Right, we will not be the fall guys this time around, whether it is for the politicians, for government, or what have you. We will do our jobs and ensure that we do it well. And a lot of people I know, guys, have been calling and saying, have you seen this statement? What are you going to do next? This is what we're going to do next. Keep doing our jobs, guys, and we will do it well for the good of our democracy, because we're answerable to God and to the people, guys.
Well, as you said, there's nothing new. It's a code word we're very familiar with. I think what got a lot of people wondering and disturbed, if you're a broadcaster, you already know what the codes are. You already know what is expected of you. It's one of the basics of the basics. So what the NBC is doing is nothing novel. It's nothing new. It is how it has now carved its approach, that is now seen as suspicious, that is now perceived as gagging by some quarters, that is now seen as elections have come, what exactly is going on. My always is always to see how institutions can be preserved, because a lot of institutions in Nigeria, if you do an opinion poll like a Vox Pop, you see that we are dealing with a crisis of confidence in that sense. So let me read that part, Kaide, you read again, the part that really causes the trouble. It says, henceforth, any anchor presenter found to have expressed personal opinion as fact. That means if there is your opinion, let it be clear that it's your opinion, but if your opinion has to be based on fact. The second part is bullied or intimidated a guest, denied fair hearing, and all of that. So let me be the first to admit, as a broadcaster, that sometimes maybe stakeholders in the industry, professionals, sometimes go overboard. I would not be here and deny that are maybe not certain elements, whether it's radio or television, that raises concern on how you approach the job, on the other hand. So that is the first form of admission. But there are also concerns about, and what I will consider a question, which is the fact that when you use the word bully and intimidated, how are you going to define that? How does an anchor or a presenter bully a guest, or a guest bullies an anchor? How do you define that? Because the NBC has had a running battle with even the media organizations. I remember they lost a case because they imposed fines. The court simply said, fine is because offense was committed that is criminal in nature, and it's only the law court that can, sanction such fines and all of that. To that extent, this year appeal is dismissed because they didn't even put up a defense. There's another one that has to do with issues around documentary or banditry that has to do with national security. They have all these cases, but the subsisting one, to the best of my knowledge, they lost in that particular one. So they are still struggling to impose fine, because Class B breaches has to do with, first you will be reprimanded maybe with a letter, and then issues of fine, issues of suspension of license. There's a sequence to all of this. So if I look at, and that's why I would like the NBC official or the boss or the DG, whoever it is, to come and explain. So if you say, for instance, Jeffrey bullied a guest, how are you going? What is bullying in this sense? What is intimidate a guest? Is it not allowing the guest to talk? Is it speaking over the guest? Or because I believe that, for instance, according to Section 22, I need to hold the government accountable and responsible on behalf of the people, I double down and insist that, look, this is a question the people would like you to answer. You can parry, you can filibuster, but you cannot tell me that A plus A is equal to 2, when 2 can mean 3 minus 1. 2 can mean 2 plus 0. 2 can mean 4 minus 2. Those are ways you can navigate if you're a smart PR person. But to say A plus A is equal to 2, no, I will double down, triple down, quadruple down. And if NBC interprets that as bullying, I'm sorry, we're going to have a running battle. But that's why I am also helping the NBC, who is our regulator, to come and explain what they, because if you take me to court, for instance, say you bullied a guest, the guest is there's going to be a lot of questions about what did you define as bullying, or are you the litigator, judge and jury in this sense? Just like what happened with the cyber stalking or cyber prohibition law, they said things like with the intention to cause annoyance, insult. How do you present to a judge what annoyance is? So I agree with the NBC that the space needs some sanity, needs some checking, but the way you define what you want to check is very critical. For instance, when they say opinion, do not express opinion as fact. I think it's as simple as that. If you have a fact, you express your enlightened opinion around the fact. It's as simple as that. But now say bully or intimidate again. How do you define that in the sense? So for me, so that they don't pull up a straw man argument unknowingly and cause problems for themselves and start a running battle that they may not be able to win and become adversaries instead of regulators, because we're not adversaries, we're partners, is important. And also, the part of them that I'm also concerned about the NBC. I remember I was on the decks, I think on the Sunday, where people also raised concern about them cherry picking in their approach. When the Adamawa State election happened, and Unisa Harry, unlawfully knowing what the Electoral Act said, for whatever reason, resorted to self-help. Whether the lady won or not, he resorted to self-help. Instead of returning officer to announce the result, he went to announce the result. And then the state broadcaster broadcast a live acceptance speech on television for almost 3 to 5 minutes. What did the NBC do? So, NBC, we're not against you. We support this action to sanitize the space. But please, you will need to come to the show. We are extending this invitation to you.
And we have already.
Yeah, so please, we have actually reached out. Come to the show so that we can have a one-on-one conversation beyond what you've written. Because for me as a broadcaster, who you addressed here as anchor or presenter, I belong to one of those categories. You need to come and explain bullied or intimidated a guest. If you don't define that, you will never get success even in the court of law. So it's important. But I agree that they need to do their work, sanitize the space. I had to bring in the Adamawa case because now elections are coming. A lot of things will happen that some people will go against the law. Whether it's a state broadcaster or those of us that are private broadcasters, the law must be the law. To the best of my knowledge, I haven't seen that they sanctioned the state broadcaster. I would like to be wrong, but I've checked, I didn't see whether they actually sanctioned the state broadcaster for what they did. But this is just an example because election seasons are very volatile seasons, so that people will not say that, oh, INEC is suffering a crisis of confidence, judiciary is suffering the crisis of confidence, or maybe the media that is left that maybe speaks for the people, you want to come and gag them. I don't think the intention is to gag. I think the intention is to, bring some ethical standard. But the language
is that your opinion or a fact? Is that your opinion or a fact?
I hope. Perhaps.
Is that an opinion or a fact?
No, this is my opinion. I mean, they writing, they want to sanitize the space, right?
Right.
But people are beginning to say they want to gag the media. I've heard people say that.
Let me come in there.
I understand what you're doing.
Perhaps I can pose, up, not necessarily an answer. Do they want to gag? Let me go to the second paragraph the third paragraph of the statement, and I read, as we approach the 2027 general elections, the Commission hereby notifies all broadcasters and stakeholders that it will enforce strict and uncompromised compliance with every provision of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code. By my training in this profession, there is no inferior or superior broadcast program or any type of presentation. There's no superior, there's no inferior. So I'd like to ask the NBC respectfully this morning, as an anchor trained, why the inclusion of the phrase, as we approach the 2027 general elections, are election broadcasts superior to other types of broadcasts? What interests is the NBC trying to preserve or protect above other interests? That's my first concern this morning as we weigh in on the statement put out by the NBC. Of course, as Jeffrey has said, increasingly there are concerns about the nature of certain broadcasts in the country and the crisis of infiltrating opinions into broadcasts, programs, and all whatnot. Now, in holding government accountable, and that is one of the primary responsibilities of broadcast journalism. The journalist, broadcast or print, is some sort of ombudsman that speaks to protect the interests, the rights of those who are unable to protect their own rights in society, those at the down, at the bottom of the ladder. So there are very, very, tricky, if you like, minds around that responsibility. And so sometimes the law is the law. You can hardly argue with the law. But sometimes, yet again, the law bothers on the, realms of relativism, such that you now seek interpretation. How do you avoid the minds and the restrictions around the law in trying to do your job? Inevitably, broadcasters have to ask questions in executing that responsibility. And so I'm very, very interested in knowing what the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, broadcast managers, with the NBC officials inclusive, would have to say when this matter is put to some form of debate. Don't forget that some years down the line, broadcasters had begun to express concern increasingly about the regulation of the National Broadcasting Commission, hence the decision to set up a body to regulate the profession, because like you have other professions, the Nigeria Bar Association, the Nigeria Medical Association, who regulate their professions as independent bodies. And so professional broadcasters as well have been seeking the right, to also provide intervention in that space to regulate the profession. And so what are we going to arrive at as we partner in this business of regulating the space? What do you interpret to be bullying, on national television? Yes, indeed, it is, a matter of concern when you invite a guest, a resource person into your studio, and then you use derogatory language for that guest. And so, of course, concern needs to be raised in that regard, such that we ensure that those who take up the microphone are trained not to talk down at a guest that is brought into the studio. But yet again, there's another regulation, another part of the law that the NBC is quoting, and which is ensuring that those you bring into the studio do not resort to the use of hate speech. We, as professionals here at Channels Television, we do well to bring a guest to order when they begin to toe those lines of insult, hate speech, especially to others who are not on set. But again, you necessarily do not have control over what a guest is going to say until they have said it, and then you bring them under control. And so we need to have a conversation around these issues. The NBC, by this press release, may have stoked or started a fire that is going to take a long time, to weigh in on. And of course, we arrive at an agreeable, workable, and practical resolution on what the law says as against what obtains in practice. But yet again, I ask the NBC, based on that third paragraph, why did it start with, as we approach the general elections? There is no superior broadcast program or edition as far as this profession is concerned. Every edition of presentation is as important as the last and the next and the next. Guys.
All right, fantastic. Well, I'm sure. So this is, we have reached out to the NBC, who are our regulators, to come and let's have a chat so that we can have clarity to some of these things. Because when I look at Section 22 of the Constitution, we're not particularly supposed to be friends of government. We're just partners. If you look at what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to unveil what they want to conceal. So as a human being, nobody would like that kind of job. But I understand a few things that the regulator is trying to say, but clarity is required so that in doing your job, we don't run into murky waters and running battles.
Yeah. Well, NUJ released a statement. The National Secretary, Achike Chude, released a statement that spoke to some of the issues. So I'll just read a line. It says the government has a duty to ensure the regulatory agencies like the NBC are not weaponized against the media. And what's the demand of the NUJ? It says rather than issue threats to media houses, the NBC should engage in meaningful dialogue with media stakeholders. This is not my opinion, but this is fact from the statement of a National Secretary of the Nigeria Union.
I like the go back for talking. I think opinions are as clear as they are. Anyway, we'll take a break, guys. When we come back, Mr. Dayakintobi joins us in just a moment as we look at what the dailies are leading with. Stay with us.